Hey YouTube family, it's Dinko the Realtor. I want to show y'all that there is a lot brewing in the economy and the housing market. I want to dissect with y'all what Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed, had to say during his briefing after the Fed meeting, and it's not looking good, y'all. Check this out. We are getting reports from housing that the effects of this could be quite significant. But you're right, the economy has been resilient. So they're asking, hey, are you going to try to avoid this recession? Are you going to start cutting rates? And are y'all, going to try to not over tighten to cause a recession? And this is Jerome Powell stating, we went over this in a previous video, right? As I mentioned again, we are getting reports from the housing that effects of this could be quite significant. And no, they are not going to start cutting rates and try to avoid a recession because inflation is the #1 goal to bring that down back to a sustainable level. Now, remember this article right here. Housing urges Jerome Powell to stop raising interest rates and risk of an economic hard landing. And that was the National Association of Realtors, the Mortgage Backed Association, and the Builder Association. And Jerome Powell is not having any of it. So check this out. We are not talking about rate cuts. We are still very focused on the first question, which is, have we achieved the stance of monetary policy that's sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation down to 2% over time sustainably? So rate cuts right now, about rate cuts, right here at the top, it says not at all, right? So the committee is not thinking about rate cuts right now at all. Now, I don't know, people keep getting these things saying, hey, the Fed's going to start cutting rates. The Fed is done. The Fed is not signaling that they're done. And of course, the Fed is trying to say, hey, we're here to mean business. They're not going to just try to sound off on, hey, we're going to cut rates, because they want to instill that fear in the economy because it's been overheating for a couple of years now, right? So the Fed is going to monitor, and that's what he's been saying. They're going to be following the data and see what they're going to be doing. And nothing here is indicating that the committee is not thinking about rate cuts right now at all. And let me show y'all this article right here. So the Fed is trying to reduce the size of its holdings to withdraw the liquidity it added during the coronavirus pandemic crisis, which caused the size of the Fed holdings to more than double to a peak of just shy of $9 trillion last year. So in order to stimulate the economy, which was overstimulated, the Fed, they were buying out bonds, they were buying out those mortgage-backed securities, and they were just increasing their balance sheet. Well, right now they're saying, hey, we have way too much debt, we have way too much on our balance sheet, we need to cut this. And I'm going to show y'all, Jerome Powell is not done, y'all. Like, this is the things that we need to pay attention to. So check this out. So right here, the committee is not considering changing the pace of the balance sheet runoff. It's something that we are talking about or considering. So they are not talking about it right here. It's not something we are talking about or considering. So the committee is not considering changing the pace of the balance sheet runoff. Like, it's not happening. I mean, I know people just want to say that the Fed is going to cut, the Fed is going to not, sell these mortgage-backed securities. And remember that article that we, went over a couple of weeks ago, the housing industry was urging for them to not sell these mortgage-backed securities because they're saying, hey, the housing market hasn't stabilized. And I've been saying that the housing market is going to be much better to buy at the end of the year, that this slowdown was going to come. And now we're seeing it all over the place, right? At the end of the year, we will see it. Now, depending if we see a recession or not, if unemployment rate, starts going up, which it did just a tad bit here. Now, if we get unemployment to 4.5%, 5.5%, there is a lot of things, a lot of dominoes that could fall in the economy and cause these home prices to keep going down into 2024. I mean, the economy hasn't settled. The unemployment rate hasn't settled. So how can you say that housing has settled when housing right now, with a historically low unemployment rate, is going down? It happened last year, 15% price drops, 9 consecutive months of price drops for 15%, from $600,000 median price to $510,000. We see a little uptick, and now we're seeing that the committee is not done. They're not going to be doing this. So right here, check this out. This is important. We will need to see some slower growth and some softening in the labor market. I mean, that is Jerome Powell stating that, hey, we're going to need unemployment to go up. And in the previous Fed meeting that they had in September, where interest rates just started shooting up, where they were saying, hey, we're not going to be cutting rates at all in 2024. And that's where the 10-year started going up and the interest rates started going up. Well, he is saying that, hey, there are things outside of the Fed control, what they're able to control, that could break and cause the recession and that soft landing to be much harder than what, they're anticipating and what people would like to see. Because there are things outside of what the Fed is doing that could break. And the Fed is very, very, their goal determined. We want inflation back under control. Yet they kind of caused some of this inflation stuff anyway, with all the money they printed into the market. So right here, the labor market conditions to get fully restore price stability. So right there. And they need to see that lower growth and softening in the labor market for the conditions to fully restore, right? The price stability, that's the goal. But it's not only a good thing that we haven't seen it. And I think we know why. Since we lifted off, we have understood that there are really two processes at work here. Let me just make sure I'm not blocking it then. One, which is the unwinding of the distortions of both supply and demand from the pandemic. So we had, the supply chain issues where all of a sudden wood prices started skyrocketing, everything started going out of hand because of those lockdowns. That's what caused the supply chain issues. Then all of a sudden we had the economy recover quicker in June after lockdowns than anybody anticipated. And then all the stimulus money in the economy, people weren't able to travel, so they were able to save money. And then they just started spending and overspending on things, on cars, on houses, on furniture, on anything, right? And even when the lockdowns went away, then people started traveling at record numbers. So right there, he's saying, hey, the pandemic caused supply chain issues, and also it caused a big demand that, really isn't there in a normal economy. So that's issue number one. And then the response to the pandemic is the issue number two. Well, the response was overstimulating the economy. Let me make sure I wasn't blocking any of that off. Good. Overstimulating the economy, which you should never do. For them to just cut the Fed rate to 0% and give this money out freely was the dumbest thing to do back in January of 2021. As soon as they did that, I knew that we would have some kind of repercussions from that. We would see something. And I was hoping it wasn't going to be bad. I was hoping that they would, once, everything was going out of control, that they were going to start raising those interest rates, but they didn't. It took them a whole year and a half, pretty much, to start raising these interest rates. And they were doing it very, very minimal by minimal, because they wanted to offload some of their securities. And they even stated that. They wanted to offload stuff, and they pretty much gave, warning signals to other people. But we see that right here, right? And right here in this other article, the housing winter arrives early as existing home sales crash to Great Recession levels and the long feared deep freeze sets in. And now I went over that in a video probably about a month ago, where I was showing that we are 40% down in September. We were 40% down compared to 2021 of the buys. So we are 40% down with the amount of people that are buying homes year over year when we're comparing to 2021, because in 2022 we saw some of that slowdown. So when we're comparing to that crazy year, the entire full year of 2021 was considered crazy. When we compare September of 2021 to September of 2023, it was 40% negative on the buy side, and we're seeing that right here. Now they're saying that deep freeze, early winter has started, because that's when the least amount of houses are sold, especially here in Utah and really nationwide. Even with the places that have warmer climates, the sales are just not the same like they are in the spring and the summer. Now, the October data, and I'm going to go over that, it's actually showing that those sales have not rebounded. The sales are actually lower than they were a month ago, and they're still as bad when they're compared to 2021. So prices are coming down, days on the market is going up. I'm going to have a whole video, dissecting that information, showing y'all what's going on in the economy, what's going on in the Utah housing market. I'm going to keep doing this, but that next video is going to be focusing on those price drops. I'm going to show y'all why those price drops are most likely going to continue, because it's all about the data. That's all I follow. I follow the numbers, I try to dissect the numbers, and I try to see what the numbers are telling me. And just like I've been saying, when Thanksgiving comes, that's going to be the best time to buy in 2023 during the holiday season. So right as Thanksgiving is coming, right as we're going into Christmas, those are going to be the best weeks. So you're going to have about a 5-week stretch that's going to be the best time to buy out of 2023, because prices are coming down, homes are lingering on the market, and the days on market is lingering for the sold data, because you got to realize the sold data and the active data have different days on market, because, well, once a house sells, it becomes part of the sold statistics, and usually the more desirable houses sell. So the sold statistic is actually better than the statistic of the active homes. Well, the active home statistics keeps getting worse, just like the sold data keeps getting worse. So all of these numbers are just indicating that we are not out of this. And then if we do see a recession, unemployment going up, there's a lot that's unraveling. So make sure that you subscribe, make sure you smash that like button. You don't want to miss the next video because I'm going to go over what's happening with prices, where we could see this going, and why the data is indicating that this is not done.